Hey y'all, hi. So today, a YouTube classic, testing drugstore dupes for iconic high-end makeup products. This is something I've never done. And in fact, it's been a while since I reviewed anything. Like the past couple of months, I've been churning out these like high concept videos, lots of fashion videos, lots of videos that take a long time in the production phase. And I've been enjoying that a lot. But this week I kind of hit a wall and I was like, I just need to sit down with some makeup and just put it on my face and talk about how it's going. It's just suddenly kind of all I have capacity for. So I went to Ulta yesterday and I was thinking I would just try out some drugstore makeup that was of interest. But I immediately started noticing those products that are just very obviously trying to, in a wink, wink, nudge, nudge way, indicate that they are dupes for high-end products. So I gathered together a little group of them. And in this video, I put each one of them on my face and talked you through my first impressions. And it was a pretty dramatic spectrum. Like one of them ended up being something that I think is going to go immediately into my daily routine. And one of them ended up being something that I never want to use again. If this happens to be your first time watching my channel, then welcome. Thank you so much for clicking on this one. My name is Hannah. I make fashion and beauty content, but I try not to promote overspending. And you know, I actually don't do that much with drugstore makeup these days. That's another reason that I wanted to do this. I'm interested in budgeting and not overspending on makeup, and sometimes knowing what's good at the drugstore is a really important part of that. I hope you'll subscribe if you are new and you end up enjoying it. And now let's go ahead and get into the meat of this video. Okay, here we go. I haven't opened any of these. I feel like sometimes first impressions are exciting, and this is one of those times. To start, I just have a little bit of sculpting and shaping in my brows, but nothing else on my face, and that's because one of the products is a primer. As soon as I saw this in the store, I was like, aha, this looks exactly like the packaging for the Makeup Forever color correcting primers. And I used to use the green Makeup Forever primer a lot until my no-buy year, and I reassessed my relationship with the cost of the things I was buying, and I realized it was actually really expensive per ounce, and then I kind of backed away. But I have a lot of experience with what I think this product is trying to dupe. So this is a L'Oreal Prime Lab Advanced Derm Primer, up to 24-hour redness eraser with 4% niacinamide. Okay, it's looking pretty promising. I was worried based on the pale mint packaging that it was going to be really, really pale and basically super white based, but it's looking greener than that. It looks greener than the outside packaging, and it looks a lot like the Makeup Forever. It definitely doesn't have that comforting, milky, oaty smell. I just remember the Makeup Forever one having this kind of like oat smell. This has more of a, what is that? It's like the slightly perfumed makeup smell. So right off the bat, it's not as beefy as some primers. It's really melting into my skin rather than doing that silicone-y thing where it sits on top. I feel like this is more like a color corrector, like a skin prepping color corrector, color correcting lotion. And wow, it's very effective at color correcting. It's interesting. It didn't add moisture or tackiness or pore filling or provide a sort of slick surface for makeup. It really feels like, I mean, it feels smooth. Yeah, my skin feels a little smoothed compared to the other side, but I actually feel like the thing that it mostly did was green color correcting, which surprises me because usually green color correcting primers, I find they prime the skin however well the formula primes the skin, and the green color correcting quality just sort of goes away. Like it rubs and soaks into the skin, and I always need to go in with like an actual potent green color corrector that's just makeup in a tube like this on top. And that's why I brought that down, because I thought that I would likely have to do that, but I don't think I'm gonna have to do that today. I mean, you can obviously see this side is starting to match my undertone, match my neck, and the redness has been like, the sting of the redness has been taken out. This side, I have more blemishes on this side, or really these are healing by now. These are just like scars. But you know, even behind that, you can see the redness with which I usually wake up in the morning, and it's just been obliterated by this rather impressive product. Let's catch up the other side. The smell, it's not fruit and it's not floral. It's almost a little bit chemical. It's like a biting, maybe citrus. Maybe citrus is what it's trying to be. It's a bit strong, but it goes away quickly. So that is the outcome of what was essentially one layer, a pretty hefty layer, right? I could have spread it a little bit thinner, but I sort of went for it. I've got to say I'm gooped and gagged, and I don't say that lightly. A very powerful and elegant color corrector. It isn't as cosmetically elegant as a primer as the one from Makeup Forever. It's left my skin feeling kind of dry. So actually, if you have oily skin, this might be the thing because it hasn't given any sort of moisture or slickness. It doesn't feel like skincare, not at all. And I feel like the Makeup Forever one, you know, it feels high-end, it feels nourishing, it feels yummy, it feels calming. Whereas this, it's like it has one job, which is to cancel out that redness, and it is slaying at that job. I think I'm gonna keep using this. And also, you know, I keep saying that it hasn't really primed my skin, but we'll see how makeup goes on top of it. I feel like that's what will really tell the tale. Can you believe that? It's also, you know, I think less than a third of the price of the one from Makeup Forever, and a lot of product in here compared to little tubes of color corrector like this. So as far as I'm concerned so far, this is a success story. Not a perfect dupe, right? Like not a spot on dupe for the Makeup Forever one. I actually think it's a better green color corrector than the one from Makeup Forever, and a little bit less nourishing feeling of a primer, although it says it has niacinamide in it, which in theory would even out your skin tone with continued use. It's a good skincare ingredient, and that's what it says on the back. So not a spot-on dupe, but a delightful drugstore discovery. Okay, next up, a product that is definitely trying to be a dupe for a high-end product. This is the E.L.F. Halo Glow Liquid Filter, and it is a dupe for the Charlotte Tilbury Hollywood Flawless Filter. It's in glass packaging, very fancy, and it's got that same huge doe foot applicator, that big beefy doe foot that Hollywood Flawless Filter has. It's also, unfortunately, the like dark beige color that I think still is the lightest shade of Hollywood Flawless Filter, and that's why I'm going to put it on now before I've gone in with any other kind of complexion product, because I don't know how dark it's going to be on me and how much I'm going to have to cover it up. It looks so pigmented too that my first impression is that it's not going to be as shiny as other products like it. Let's see. I know that this isn't new, but I had somehow missed it. And when I was at Ulta, actually, I asked this really lovely employee named Leah if she could think of anything that was like a clear, obvious drugstore dupe for high-end, and she led me straight to this product, and I was like, oh, that's perfect for the video. So thanks, Leah, if you're watching. Hey, girl. I used to have Hollywood Flawless Filter. It got kicked out of my collection by Auric Glow Lust in the new shade of Morganite, which is a way better match for my skin. But this feels like it. It feels thick like it. It has pigment like it, and by it, I mean Flawless Filter. It is doing that kind of pore disappearing thing that Flawless Filter does, and it's also doing that thing where it's not metallic in person. It's not like turning my cheeks into the Tin Man's cheeks, but when it catches the light, it beams. It's also setting down. It's giving me time to work with it, but it's eventually setting down completely. It's staying on the skin, and it's not pilling. A good dupe. I actually think this is a good dupe, and the one disappointment is just, for me, I wish the shade range were broader, but just like with Flawless Filter, I wish that there was a lighter shade. It was much more neutral and more pale because it's just darker than my skin. So it's awkward because I can put it on my cheeks, but I have to kind of blend it with complexion products. I have to sort of semi-cover it up. It's so peach for me that it inevitably changes the color of whatever blush I put on top of it. And so it's just not the same as having a product like this that matches one's complexion, which I have in Auric Glow Lust, and that's really awesome. So not for me because there's not a match, but you know, if you've always really wanted to know what it would be like to have Hollywood Flawless Filter, like how it would be to have that in your routine if you'd make use of it, because it's sort of this in-between product, you know, it can be used all over. It has some pigment, but it's really, really glowy. If you've just always had a burning curiosity about that, but the actual Hollywood Flawless Filter is out of your price range, this is a good way to try it, to like try out this genre of product and see how it goes. So I don't have anything for my complexion other than those two. I don't have like a foundation or concealer from the drugstore that looked like a high-end dupe. There are a lot of pretty looking ones, but all of them have that problem where the shades that are light enough for me are really saturated with either peach or pink or yellow. There's nothing that has that sort of grayed out, neutral, desaturated tone. And that has long been a problem at the drugstore. I mean, it has long been a problem for me everywhere. And only recently some brands have started to offer makeup that matches me better, and those brands all happen to be high-end. So I'm just gonna throw on a little bit of MONIKA Blunder cover, which I've recently pulled back out, kind of fallen back in love with. I'm gonna put a thin layer of this all over my face, spot conceal a tiny bit, and then I'll be back. Okay, a couple of things. One, I feel like I didn't have to use as much of Blunder cover as I have been using because the L'Oreal product, Prime Lab Redness Eraser, did such an incredible job of bringing my skin tone to the actual color that it would be if I didn't have redness. So a lot of the skin on my face was left after this product just looking how I want it to, exactly how I want it to, and not needing any coverage. Because I have some unevenness, because I have some healing blemishes, I felt like I could do with a little bit of coverage, but it almost brightened it up like a tiny bit beyond what I would have wanted. Like it's really, really as pale now as my neck right here. And that's quite pale, you know, so I could have stood, I think, to use even a little bit less of the Blunder cover. This product also didn't give Blunder cover any trouble. It layered on perfectly well. It didn't pill or anything. And I was kind of putting it to the test because Blunder cover is a stiff cream foundation, so it really needed to be buffed and pressed into the skin. And that would have disturbed this or caused it to pill if anything was going to. So ever more impressed as the video wears on by L'Oreal Prime Lab, 10 out of 10 so far. Also note that I didn't go over my cheeks with Blunder cover. That's why it looks like I have cheek makeup on. I mean, I do have something on my cheeks, which is this stuff, but also, you know, I don't need coverage there. I don't need to turn my cheeks bright white again and then to only color them with pigment again on top of that. So I just left them. Overall, I have ended up with a face that has glossy cheeks, a skin tone that matches the rest of my body, but not too much makeup on it, which is my goal every day, you know? So well done so far, Drugstore. Okay, next up I have this mascara, which I actually found, I Googled. When I was in the store, I Googled Drugstore Dupes for Charlotte Tilbury mascara because I specifically wanted to know if there were any that are kind of legendarily dupes for Charlotte Tilbury mascaras. I don't know why, because I've never tried a Charlotte Tilbury mascara, so this is gonna be more about letting you know if this is a good mascara or not, rather than letting you know if it's a dupe for the Charlotte Tilbury. But it also kind of fascinates me, and I think that the Telescopic, which is what this is, L'Oreal Telescopic, I feel like this or the new iteration of it, which is called Telescopic Lift, I feel like it's been having a moment lately. So I was like, let's just see what it's about. When I looked it up, this came up as a dupe for whatever sort of the original Charlotte Tilbury basic mascara is, the one that has the really skinny rubber wand with the short bristles, which is what this also has. Yeah, look at that. Really skinny. Like the brush is just as skinny as the wand. I'm very curious about how this is going to go because this isn't usually the kind of mascara that works the best for me, although once in a while, one like this will really surprise me. Okay, first impression. I like the little wand because it feels dainty. Like it's just, it feels cute. I'm like, And it also, because it's so little and delicate, it's very easy to manipulate. It's depositing a lot of product onto my lashes. It's building very easily. We're definitely getting length. I'm having to work a little bit harder to get girth, but I feel like we're getting there. So there are the results of me having worked at it just with one brush, having dipped it in one time and not really having let it dry between coats. I think this is what most people would call one coat, you know, but I did build it up a bit. So it's looking pretty good. And a couple of caveats. One, I feel like my lashes aren't at their best right now. I feel like lashes kind of go through phases. Sometimes they feel really thick and full, and sometimes it feels like they're thinned out a little bit. And no matter which mascara I use, I can't quite get them to be as wonderful as they sometimes are. And I'm in that latter phase right now, so I'm sure that the mascara's performance is being impacted by that a little bit. And the other thing is, often a mascara isn't its very best the first time out of the gate. Usually it needs a week or so, maybe a couple of uses at least, before it starts to be how it's going to be. So given that those two caveats are in place, this is an impressive show, right? And I can see why it came up in the search. I don't know what the Charlotte Tilbury one is out there doing for people, but I can understand why people are satisfied with this as a replacement for a high-end mascara or just as a mascara. It's fun to use because of the skinny little brush. And, you know, as I build it, it's starting to get that nice kind of fibery gripping on itself, fractals upon fractals quality that I quite enjoy. And I thought when I first started using it on the other eye, I thought I was going to say that it has good qualities, but that you probably can't get a wispy lash with it. I actually don't think that's true. I actually think there's something about the brush with just one or two coats, spreading out the lashes delicately with the brush and then stopping. You can actually get kind of a slightly fluffy, wispy lash with it. Okay, I have more to say after working working on this eye for a while. For some reason, I've struggled a lot more on this side. Maybe it's because I went on for too long, got over enthusiastic, but it started to get kind of clumpy. It ended up kind of spidery and not necessarily in the good way. I think I would have been happier if I had just left it at like a light lash look, like a light wash on the lashes. But because it's called telescopic, I was sort of getting this impression that it's supposed to really, really build. But it's like the more I build it, the harder it becomes to comb through what's there and get like a soft, even, or fluffy look. So I've ended up with laden, kind of quite made up looking lashes. I feel like that is beautiful sometimes, and I actually really do like that sometimes, but not all the time. And now that I've gotten there, I can't scale it back. So I feel like the jury's still a little bit out on this. I think it's always a mistake to take a total first impression of a mascara without a grain of salt. You know what I mean? You always have to wait on a mascara. So this would be true in any case, but particularly because it's a little hard for me even to tell at this moment what it's going to be like as I use it over time. And, you know, I'll definitely be using this in future videos and I'll report back about it. Okay, now we're really getting into the juicy stuff. Look what I have. I've never tried anything from Makeup Revolution, Revolution Beauty, or any of those adjacent brands. But when I saw this, I was like, oh, I've got to include that in this video. So this is the Makeup Revolution bald-faced. So this is the Makeup Revolution bold-faced dupe of the Jones Road Miracle Balm, which I have reviewed at length. I will link those videos if you're interested in the Jones Road Miracle Balm. I'm your girl. Check the description box. I talked about this in my most recent new makeup hot takes. It's very, very obviously a dupe for Miracle Balm. And look at that color. Isn't that nice? The colors are slightly different. I only have one shade of Miracle Balm left in my life, and it's the shade Natural, which is basically clear. Right? It's clear with just the tiniest hint of like this foggy pink. That's much built up. It's much darker in the pot than it actually is. When you swatch it out, it's just like a clear chapstick. So the shades are different. This Revolution Balm is in the shade Natural Nude. I think the lightest shades are a bit different. And I have no idea how pigmented this is going to be. Obviously, the sizes are different. But you know, I'm not mad at it because the pot of Miracle Balm is just massive. Like too big, you know? I'm also not mad at this little tin. Better than a plastic tin. Okay, texture very similar. Smell similar. It's a little bit more pure ginger and lemongrass, a little bit less mysterious. In fact, the Jones Road one, by comparison, smells a little musty. This is really interesting so far. Okay, let's see how much pigment it has. Unfortunately, I don't have a pigmented Jones Road Miracle Balm here. I mean, I'll show you. I spread it out right there. It's just clear, right? So I can't compare this directly, but I do have my memories. And here's how I feel about it. This is a slightly more makeup-y product. It feels like it's melting away to what I would describe as a cream rather than a wax, or like a liquid wax or a melted wax, which is what the actual Jones Road Miracle Balm feels like. This feels like a cream blush. Some of the Miracle Balms are pretty pigmented. This is also on the more pigmented side. Probably about as pigmented as some of them and much more pigmented than others of them. Let's see how it applies. It's pretty. I mean, the color is really pretty. I like that the color isn't buffing out to have too much orange in it. I was a little worried about that based on what I saw in the pan. You know, it has obviously the dupe for the Hollywood Flawless filter underneath it, so this isn't the pure test of what the glossiness would look like, and I'll continue to test it and I'll of course report back. But it's applying a lot like Miracle Balm, and it's really here on the back of my hand because it's not adulterated by the shiny product underneath. It's here on the back of my hand that I can really tell what the quality of the product is like. And yeah, it's just slicker. It's slicker. Jones Road Miracle Balm has this sort of stiff, sturdy quality, and they didn't quite nail that with this. It feels kind of like a liquid when it melts, which you kind of, you know, you have to, and it melts much more easily than Miracle Balm. When it melts, it starts to feel kind of like a liquid blush that you squeezed out of a tube, you know? It seems like that's the way the formula behaves. And it's making me want to use a brush with it instead of using my fingers because it feels more like makeup and less like skincare. And this is the thing that I always have said about not just the Miracle Balm, but about a lot of Jones Road products in general. They're skincare. They're like tinted skincare. You have to like think about them that way and use them that way, really rub them into the skin. And they end up with this really, really natural, one with the skin, nourishing quality, and they end up feeling like they've left behind behind this protective layer, really pretty natural protective layer. And yeah, this isn't that. This is a cream blush. I'm like wanting to apply it with a brush. That feels much more natural to me. I've let it drift down a little bit on the sides of my face. I'm going to clean that up a tiny bit and then we'll talk. Okay, here's how I'm feeling right now about Makeup Revolution Miracle Balm. Not a good dupe. I feel like they weren't going to be able to do it. You know what I mean? They weren't going to be able to dupe Miracle Balm with its really luxe feeling combination of waxes and pigments with that sort of special, that magical je ne sais quoi that Bobbi Brown put into it. You know, I'm not super surprised that it's not a spot-on dupe. However, the question is it one of those situations where it's not a good dupe, but it is a good product? Or is it not a good dupe and not really a great product because it's reaching for this thing that it's not catching and then kind of falling into the middle, the gray area and languishing? I think time with this product will tell the complete answer, but my instinct right now, my first impression is that it might actually be a little bit not a good dupe, and therefore, because it's trying to be, not really a super great product. And here's why. Cream blushes that have this kind of melty quality, they tend to work better when they're quite pigmented, because when they have this quality and they have that semi-pigmented, like pigment suspended in a Vaseline-y cream formulation, it's hard for me to keep them from going patchy. I like the substance, I like the way that it feels. I really like the color. I like the way that it applies, but I had to keep fussing with it to get the color to be even. And I never had that problem with the pigmented versions of Miracle Balm, except for the bronze one, because of all those little shiny particles. It did that thing where the color would sort of layer and pick up in some places and not in others, and it would end up being a bit patchy. I just feel like the way this has ended up being formulated, because they tried for a Miracle Balm and they landed more in a cream blush formulation, it doesn't have enough pigment for its texture for me. Right? That's my personal preference, my personal experience. When I first started swatching it out and playing with it, I was like, oh my God, it's so creamy, it's so luscious, the color is so beautiful. And I do like the look that I ended up with. But because of that issue of fussiness, I could see myself testing this a few more times for the tube, testing it for you so that I can report back, and then never wanting to use it again because I would rather reach for something more reliable, like the Kjaer Weis cream blush. Even the Merit Flesh Balms, I feel like, are trying to do something very similar. It's really, really, really similar experience of going in with a brush on my hand with that stuff there. That's very similar to what the Flesh Balms are serving, but they don't have that patchy pigment problem that I think that this might end up having. And lastly, another product from Revolution. Almost everything they do is a dupe, and it was hard for me not to source everything from that section. That was actually why I appealed to Leah in the Ulta store. I was like, I can't see the forest for the trees here, and this can't just be like a Revolution beauty video. I wanted to have dupes from some other brands, but I really wanted to try this in particular. The Revolution Beauty Shimmer Balm, to me, a clear attempt at a dupe for the Fenty lip gloss. Even the doe foot is similar, that big juicy doe foot. Remember when Fenty first launched their lip gloss? That was sort of the first time that had been done, right? The feeling of having a huge oversized doe foot to apply lip gloss, and now it's all over the place, but Fenty was the first. Let's see how it feels. Okay, first of all, it smells like nothing like the Fenty. It smells like icing. Really, really sweet, really sweet cookie icing or sugar icing, candy. A little bit like what Fenty was going for, but much more synthetic. And texture, nothing like it. It's really thick. It's not sticky as such, but it doesn't have that this is reminding me of how much I actually like the Fenty lip gloss. That gloss, it's got that watery quality, juicy liquid fluid, almost like a lip oil. And just wet but sturdy. Whereas this is thick. If you had a bowl full of the Fenty lip gloss and you put the back of a spoon on top of it and lifted it up, it would react like water. You know what I mean? Or like a really, really liquidy syrup. But with this, you could get stiff peaks. You know what I mean? Like the egg beater. Egg whites beaten to a fluff. You dip the spoon in and it would be like a stiff peaks. It just feels like a much stiffer, thicker formula. The color of this is obviously also icier than the original. This comes in a lot of colors and so does Gloss Balm. So it probably is a color dupe for one of the Gloss Balms. Either that or there is one in the range that's closer to the original than this, but it's not the color that I'm objecting to. I actually kind of like that pale, icy pink on me. It's not that It's the like jelly gloss thickness of it that I might be able to get behind if it didn't have such a strong synthetic sweet smell. But the combination of that jelly gloss feeling, that super, super thick icing feeling, and the really sickly sweet candy icing smell makes it kind of a fail for me. Like, I'm not dying to wear it again. It has that like slightly nasty drugstore gloss quality in spite of its beautiful luxe packaging and the pretty color. You hear that? So yeah, for me, not a good dupe, not even by a long stretch, and not, unfortunately, a good product either. Interesting, because the two Revolution products that are, I feel like the ones that are trying the hardest to be dupes, well, this one's trying pretty hard to be a dupe. But Revolution's like a dupe brand. Like, that's their mission, you know? These are the two that I feel like fall farthest from the tree. Like, I feel like they are duping the products, the high-end products that they're referencing in form, but not in function. And they're not really that worried about actually delivering what the high-end products deliver to the user. You know what I mean? They're trying to match all of these different aspects, like the packaging, the advertising, even the scent, but they're just not trying that hard to do that. And they're not really thinking about what all of those things add up to, like what the sum of the parts is for the Jones Road balm, what the outcome of the adding together of all those parts is. They're not really trying to dupe that outcome, and they're definitely not trying to do that with the gloss either. So far, not so good with Revolution Beauty, but this does kind of make me want to investigate a little more and find out if they have products in their lineup that are supposed to be good, like that people really like. At the very least, I can't wear this gloss to film, so that basically takes it completely off the table for me. We'll get through it. But these other brands that aren't dupe brands, but just have clearly decided to reference high-end products with these particular pieces of makeup, they to me performed much, much better. So quick recap, L'Oreal Prime Lab, the green one, not a perfect dupe, but does a lot of what the Makeup Forever version does, and a very, very good product. Probably the one of all of these that I'm the most excited to keep using. E.L.F. Halo Glow Liquid Filter, excellent dupe. Spot on dupe. In fact, it's too good of a dupe. It even duped the fact that there isn't a shade for me in the Charlotte Tilbury Hollywood Flawless Filter line. I'll probably give it away to someone who matches it better, but that person's gonna love it. L'Oreal Telescopic, jury's still out. It could go either way. It's gonna take me a week or two. We'll get back to you. Revolution Beauty Balm Glow, I'll try again, but I feel like it's gonna be a no. And the Revolution Shimmer Balm, it's already a no. Wow, we really started on a high there. I feel like we started with the best and ended with the worst. And this was more fun than I expected it to be. And there were more successes than I expected there to be because, you know, I love my high-end makeup. I'm a sucker for good packaging. I love the luxurious feel of things. So I'm predisposed to like look down my nose at this stuff. And I was blown away, at least by the first two. And it makes me want to like get a little bit more back into drugstore makeup and see what gems I might be able to find. I hope it was also fun for you to watch. And if there's anything you know of that's like a really good dupe at the drugstore or something that's trying to be a dupe, but that's just a really, really good product, I could do round 2 of this. If there are enough of them in the comment section, I could totally run out and just do a round 2 of this. So let me know what you think. Thank you so much for always making my day with your comments, for liking the videos, for being subscribed. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to take extra good care of yourself so that you can be the most effective version of yourself as you do your work in the world.